All right, good morning. Good morning, everybody. This is Rick Smith at the National Weather Service in Norman, beginning our Severe Weather Update webinar for Wednesday, May 2nd. We are recording this, and if nothing breaks, we will provide a video link to this so you can share this with anybody who's not able to make it. I'll also send you the slides after we're done. So appreciate the interest. Right now we got close to 190 people on, and appreciate everybody's interest in being here with us today. Hopefully I've muted all the phones. I know we've had big problems with the phones being unmuted and people not muting their own phones on their end. So hopefully that'll knock that out. If not, let me know and we'll try something different. But if you have a question during this and you can see the question box over on the right hand side of the screen, just type it in there and I'll see it as we go along, and I'll try to address them as I can. So let's just jump right into it here. Maybe. Let's see. Here is the latest version of the severe weather risk map for today, and not a lot of change from what we've been seeing for the past couple of days leading up to this event. An enhanced risk covers much of north central, northwest, west central Oklahoma, surrounded by most of the rest of our area being in a slight risk, and then a marginal down there in far southeast Oklahoma. Coordinating with the SPC, it's quite likely and expected that this enhanced risk will be expanded further to the south and east at the next update. We kind of did that on our own a little bit, so ours is a little bit further south and east than theirs was to begin with, but it will expand a little bit more on the next update, so don't be surprised about that. Again, please don't focus too much on these exact risk areas. I don't honestly expect the storms to be any worse in Clinton than they're going to be in El Reno, just because you're in two different risk areas. This is based primarily on expected coverage of storms, so remember that. But that is how it lays out. We do have the potential for some high-end storms today. We've got a lot of moisture. This is the most low-level moisture we've had here in a while. And we're going to have a lot of instability. We don't really think the cap's going to be that much of an issue this afternoon. It really is kind of a busy looking afternoon and evening for severe weather. And we could be looking at high-end storms, at the possibility of maybe, really big damaging hail, baseball to softball size. Had some of that up in Kansas yesterday, 70 to 80 mile an hour winds, maybe even higher. And there is a real tornado potential today that we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail. Can see one person saying they're having a problem seeing the screen. Is anybody else having problems? Or you should be seeing the a severe weather outlook graphic on the screen now. Hopefully it's not a widespread problem. Okay. Just want to zoom out and give you some perspective. We are on the tail end of a larger risk area that goes up through Kansas and into northwest Missouri, southern Iowa, and far southeast Nebraska. There's a moderate risk that's painted up there in parts of eastern Kansas and into northwest Missouri. The reason the moderate risk is there is not because of tornadoes or hail, it's because of the risk of widespread damaging winds. So we don't want you to get focused on that moderate risk. What we hear a lot of times is people will see a higher risk somewhere else and they'll think, well, it's not going to be that bad here. That's not the case. So don't focus on that moderate risk too much. Here's the tornado potential graphic. We'll be tweaking this again here before noon, probably, as when SPC comes out with their new probabilities. This is based on the tornado probabilities from the SPC. Again, the yellow represents the area that has the greatest likelihood of tornadoes, but that's not the only area. If you're in the green area, you too have a risk, and even in the blue area, everybody in our area basically has some risk of a tornado from late this afternoon through the evening tonight. It's going to all depend on where the storms form, where they move, what type of storms they are, obviously. But we are most concerned with the potential for some more isolated supercell type thunderstorms to develop out along the dry line this afternoon. Those will be in an environment extremely favorable for really big hail and eventually tornadoes as well. So we're going to be very much watching this whole area this afternoon and into the evening. Timing. Now this timing is a little broad at the moment, but I'll explain why. The lighter shading is representing the earliest initiation of storms. Could be as early as 3 p.m. over far western Oklahoma out along the dry line, and those storms will be moving toward the east and northeast through the late afternoon and early evening hours. Most of our area is covered in the 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. window. And the reason for such a broad scale of time is because there's still some uncertainty. There's growing confidence that we're probably going to be dealing with more than one wave of thunderstorms. So the 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Window of time in that darker blue shaded area, think about that as being within these supercell thunderstorms that develop out along the dry line and moving into the western part of that darker blue shaded area. The late night and early morning Thursday timing is due to another wave of thunderstorms that's expected to develop, primarily affecting the southern half of Oklahoma and western North Texas. But again, we're fine-tuning that. So it's a complex forecast today, forecasting multiple waves of thunderstorms and potential severe weather. So that's why we are looking at that potential and that timing specifically. We'll do our best to fine tune this through the day. This timing graphic is really the hardest graphic for us to produce. It's really hard to nail down, but I know it's one of the most important questions you need answered. So we'll keep working on it. Okay, so I just want to do some bullet points of things to remember and things to think about this afternoon if you're a decision maker. First of all, we've gotten lots of calls. We believe storms should hold off until after most school dismissal times. Now, this may be a close call for far western Oklahoma. It could be that bus routes are not completed by the time you get the first storms forming out there. But certainly for the Oklahoma City metro area, we think we're not expecting storms to happen during school or during the bus rides home this afternoon. So that's one good piece of news, but far western Oklahoma needs to keep an eye out for that. As I said earlier, don't focus on the highest risk area. Just because there's a moderate risk up in Kansas doesn't mean our storms are going to be will have the potential to be any less severe. So just kind of ignore that moderate risk up there. We are expecting the potential for significant tornadoes. We are the environment that we're seeing with wind shear, with instability, with low cloud bases, with a breakable cap, with a dry line to help trigger the storms, with an increase in low-level wind shear after dark. It's kind of concerning as far as the potential, at least, for significant tornadoes. We're not saying they're guaranteed to happen, but we've definitely got our eyes peeled for that today, and you should too. We believe that the peak tornado risk time would be from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., and that would be primarily west of I-35. That's not to say that there will not be some tornado risk east of I-35, but the peak with those supercell storms would be from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. west of I-35. A lot of this thinking is based on not only an examination of the current environment, but it's also looking at some of the short-range computer models that we look at. And yesterday afternoon, there were 2 or 3 of them that just kept wanting to produce an isolated supercell or 2 out in west central, southwest Oklahoma. Today, a lot of the models are producing thunderstorms along the dry line. And again, that's not a guarantee that that will happen, but that's giving us more confidence that we are going to see some dry line storms late afternoon, and any of those would have a tornado potential. So we got to keep a close eye on all of those storms this afternoon. Another thing is a lot of times people think, well, it gets dark and then the storms aren't as bad. Because of the high moisture content in the air and the increase in wind shear after dark, after 7 o'clock this evening that we're forecasting, it's quite possible and expected that storms may maintain their intensity and the tornado potential well into the evening. So just because the sun goes down doesn't mean the storms are going to lose their punch and their energy. So keep that in mind too. This is not, a lot of times that's what happens, but not tonight. We're going to be active on NWS Chat. We're going to try to have hourly mesoscale updates in there to kind of get an idea on where all the pieces of the puzzle are sitting and what's going on specifically. We're going to be very active in there all day and all night. So hit us up if you have a question. And we do plan to launch at least one special weather balloon. We're going to do one. We're going to do an 18Z launch, which means we will. It'll be around 12 noon, 1 o'clock, somewhere in that time frame. And we are seriously considering maybe doing another one mid-afternoon. So we'll keep you posted on chat about that. But We are going to be looking very closely at the vertical wind profiles, but especially the cap strength with that first sounding, and whatever other sounding goes up later in the day. Severe weather may continue off and on through the night and into the early morning hours on Thursday. This risk map for Thursday shows where we could have storms either intensifying or refiring later in the afternoon on Thursday, where the severe weather potential would be there again from Hughes County down through Pontotoc and Cole and Carter and Love counties you see highlighted in the yellow there. A lot of this is going to depend on what storms do tonight and how much they progress early tomorrow morning. So we'll as always, be tweaking this and fine-tuning it. All right, that is all the slides I have. Let me roll back over here and see what kind of questions we have. Somebody asked about church services and youth group meetings tonight and any evening activities. Yeah, that's going to be a concern for McLean County specifically, or the area around the metro area here. You know, we could see storms in here potentially as early as 7 to 8 o'clock. It may be a little bit later than that, but I always like to err on the conservative side and give you earlier times than we might actually expect. So it could be as early as 7 or 8 in the McLean County, Oklahoma City area. Let's see what else we got here. Any other questions? Do we expect storms tonight to be multi-cell in nature? Eventually, but initially we're going to be concerned about isolated supercells. As the storms form into clusters or lines with the low cloud bases and the wind shear that'll still be in place, the tornado threat will not go completely away even through the nighttime. So we could see the weaker, harder to detect storms embedded in a line or cluster, or tornadoes embedded in a line, a cluster of storms later tonight. So the tornado potential doesn't go away completely through the night, really. So we'll have to keep an eye on everything for that. Somebody asked, what size hail reports would you like reported? Well, it kind of depends. I mean, the baseline is quarters, so quarters is a severe storm, so certainly quarter size or bigger would be good, and chat is a great way to report that, or phone, or however you get the reports to us. We'll take any size hail report. Sometimes the early storms of the day, it's good to get those pea size and nickel size and dime size reports, just so we can kind of calibrate the radar, but quarters is the bare minimum. Let's see, somebody asked where the dry line is now. The dry line is kind of not well formed at this point. We expect it to kind of set up shop out in the eastern Texas Panhandle later this afternoon. It's not really clearly evident right now, but we expect that to be the case later today. Let's see, what do we think the noon sounding will tell us? Well, we'll be looking at everything on it, but we'll be interested in the cap strength, how warm is the layer of warm air above our heads that could put a lid on thunderstorm development, and how strong that is. Is it too strong to get storms to form? We don't think that'll be the case. Is it so weak that we're going to have storms form early and everywhere? We don't think that's the case either, but the balloon will help us with that for sure. What info on the cap has changed from yesterday to today? Yesterday, they expected the cap to be stronger. Well, we've never really been thinking the cap was going to be that strong. I mean, we've never really been thinking the cap would be so strong that it could prohibit storms from developing at all. We've always believed that it's a breakable cap, and so not a lot has changed for us on the cap strength thinking. What about schools in Southwest Oklahoma letting out early? You know, that's your call. If I lived in Southwest Oklahoma or Western Oklahoma and I saw any indication of thunderstorms developing, I'd probably be checking my kids out of school just so they'd be home. But that's just me. That's really a local decision, a personal decision. I can't really tell you if that's good or bad, but whatever the students, whatever works best for the parents and students in your area, and whatever you think would keep people the most safe. That's the thing to consider. Okay, more questions. With the second wave during the overnight, is the tornado potential going to be lower? Will the storms be widespread? The tornado potential may be lower, but even overnight, it may not be zero. We're still going to have enough shear and ingredients in place where we could have some low-level spin in the storms, and we could have some tornado potential even then. Storms will be more widespread. If we get that second wave in the overnight hours, they'll be more widespread, more of a large cluster or a line of storms. By significant tornadoes, do you anticipate they'll be long track, large, or both? We anticipate that what we're saying is the ingredients are there where the science tells us that if a tornado were to develop in this environment, it could be rather intense. So it could last longer than what we saw north of Buffalo last night, where it's just barely even a tornado. These tornadoes today could be more of the variety of what we saw in Kansas yesterday, and they could be more significant. Don't really worry. We don't really forecast the size or the anything like that. I mean, that's not really the key factor to look at. But we could see an EF2 or greater tornado in our area this afternoon. I would not be at all surprised if that happened. We hope it doesn't, and it may not. That's not a guarantee, but that's what we're forecasting. Let's see. Good questions. A lot of them today too. Is the sun coming through the clouds already going to heat up the day more than thought? No, I mean, we've always understood that there was going to be some high clouds in place today. That's not really a factor that's going to keep storms from forming. I mean, if the sun comes out blazing and we really get hotter, and then that could make things even more unstable. But even with the clouds, it's going to be unstable enough for severe thunderstorms and tornadoes this afternoon. We do not plan to do another webinar this afternoon. We will be sharing a lot of information in NWS chat, and you're always welcome to call us or contact us any way you can if you have a specific question, but no second webinar this afternoon. The forecast only shows 40% for Alva. This seems to indicate, what you're saying seems to indicate much greater chances. Well, yeah, there's not a 100% chance of storms anywhere here today. There's going to be places that will definitely see a thunderstorm. There's going to be places that may not get a drop of rain today. So there's not a 100% chance of thunderstorms today. What I'm talking about with the severe weather potential is conditional on the fact that we get a thunderstorm. So if we get a thunderstorm today, the severe weather potential is high with it, and the tornado potential is there with it. So yeah, there may be a 40% chance for any one location on the map to get a thunderstorm. But just keep in mind that if you do get a storm, the potential is there. So don't confuse the severe weather potential with the probability of a thunderstorm or precipitation, because nobody has a 100% chance of rain this afternoon or this evening, I don't think. That's what we're talking about with that. What has to happen today in order to lower the risk for storms tomorrow? Well, I don't know. The more storms we have overnight and the longer they persist into the daylight hours tomorrow, that would act to lower the risk tomorrow. Let's see. So your prediction as of now is that the yellow shaded area is the area most likely to see strong violent tornadoes after 3 p.m. and overnight. Which yellow shaded area? This one? Hold on, I'm going the wrong way. That medium tornado potential on the current tornado outlook graphic highlights the area that is most likely to see strong tornadoes. Now, we're not really saying, well, we used it early this morning, but we unused it a little while ago. We're not really seeing the ingredients for a violent EF4, EF5 tornado widespread. That's not to say it's not going to happen. If you get the wrong tornado in the wrong place, we could see a higher end tornado, but we're not calling for, this is not a violent tornado day like May 24th, 2011, May 10th, May 20th, things like that. So yeah, the peak time for tornadoes would be in the 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. time frame, and most likely in that yellow shaded area. But I can tell you that yellow shaded area is going to shift around through the day. So I hope that answers your question, but that's kind of what we're looking at. It kind of captures where we think the highest potential for tornadoes is right now. Let's see, do you know how far east and south it will shift? Not really. we are expecting the SPC to kind of shift this risk area. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm looking at Doug to see what his thoughts are, but I wouldn't be surprised if it shifts far enough south and east to grab Ponca City, Stillwater, the Oklahoma City metro area, maybe Chickasha, Anadarko, maybe just rounding it off like that, and maybe even down to Hobart. I don't know. We haven't seen it yet. That's just speculation. We'll go over there in a little bit and see if we can peek over their shoulder and see what they're drawing. But that we're not expecting a dramatic shift. It's not going down to Ada or anything, but it'll get the metro area, I'm pretty sure. Okay. I noticed that some possibly severe is not in the regular forecast anymore. Is this a policy change? No policy change. We'll look into that. That's a good catch. Do you anticipate the risk area to move in a northerly direction or more east? Well, selfishly, because we don't cover Kansas, it doesn't bother me how far north it moves. It can move all the way north and I'd be perfectly happy, but it may move more east to Ponca City, Stillwater, Oklahoma City, that area. All right, a couple more and then we're going to let you guys go. I know I probably missed a question. I apologize, but again, hit us up on email, call us, hit us chat, ask a question, anything like that if you have something else. We had a great turnout today, great questions. This is the most interaction we've had in as long as I can remember, so we appreciate it. It's going to be a long day, a long night for us and for you guys, so if you need anything, if there's anything all we can do to help you, please let us know. Thanks a lot. Good luck. Have a good afternoon and evening.